No amount of breath work, meditation, or therapy is going to fix your anxiety unless you do this one thing. Let me show you how. So we start with the moment. This is the event that took place that you really didn't like. This is when you had the breakup or when the person yelled at you and you saw all negative, no positive. In that moment, it's a negative moment. What your brain will do is, because it's a negative moment, it'll set up an instinct to avoid, because you don't want to feel what you're feeling in that moment. And what you do is it'll take a snapshot of everything that's going on in that moment. It'll make associations. So it's going to take a look at the environment, at all the things that are going on, and it's going to connect them to that moment because you want to avoid it. But you don't make just one association, you make primary association, and you make associations to those associations, and they're called secondary associations, and more associations to those associations, and so on. And what these are called are triggers. They're firing off that original event. And when you get fired off from that original event, you feel it at the surface level of your awareness, and you feel feelings and emotions. And this is where anxiety lives. So when we feel this anxiety, because it's been triggered off after a series of these primary moments, what we do is we look for solutions. So what do we do for us? What are the solutions to our anxiety? We've got things like meditation. We've got breath work. And we have therapy. And that's just three. We've got way more than that. Now what we do is we go through and we get anxious and we do the meditation, breath work and therapy, and that helps us deal with our emotions and our feelings. But because the triggers still remain, what happens is over time we get triggered until we get overwhelmed at the surface level of our awareness with our feelings and emotions again. And then we go back to our solutions to work on them. And we get into a cycle of getting overwhelmed with our feelings and emotions, going to our solutions, to our tools, dealing with that, emptying out all the feelings and emotions, and then getting charged up again through the triggers and back. And that's cycles. Now, some of you might say, but I know where this comes from because we can do therapy. Okay, and some therapy can help us become aware of our triggers. And we can trace those triggers back through therapy, and we can even get to the primary moment. And what that does is we say, oh, this is when Dad yelled at me. That's why I'm sensitive to all these things. And it gives us a reason to feel what we feel. But because the triggers still remain, we understand, we know what they are, and we know where they come from, but we still feel them, which means that even though we know the reason, we still feel them at the surface level of awareness with the same feelings and emotions, same anxiety, and we can keep going back to our solutions. This time it could be therapy. It could be meditation, breath work, and therapy where we talk about it, but we talk about it until we get triggered some more. We get to the surface again, and we just keep going through, and that's another cycle. And so these are cycles that don't actually do what they're claiming to do. This is when people get into these loops of, I'm doing all this work and nothing's changing. And nothing ever will change until you do this one thing. You need to be able to get down to the primary event, and you ask yourself a different set of questions where you see equal benefits to drawbacks in the moment. So you start to see all the benefits and the drawbacks, and you see until you keep answering those until you see them equally. When you do, that moment changes because it's no longer black or white. It turns into something else. It's shades of grey. And when that moment in your mind changes to something grey instead of black and white, it's no longer something to avoid because it's not all bad. And because it's something not to avoid, what you've done is you've gone and dissolved the associations to everything else. So these triggers lose their power. You've done it at the root. And now the feelings and emotions that you feel of anxiety, they actually change to calm, present, even gratitude if you do enough of it, or love. And now the thing that used to trigger you doesn't, and this is how you feel. That's healing from that particular trigger. And you don't need to go to your solutions anymore for the same thing. So no therapy or breath work or meditation, they're not bad, but they won't do what you want them to do until you can address the primary moment and you can balance your mind on that moment. This is what's called an integrated awareness. So take a look at that. I hope that's helpful.